Hey everybody, and we are back after a little break with another episode of You Can't Come Over, But You Can Come In. And I asked you guys who you'd love to see, and you said, can you please get Emily Saliers back on? Because not only was our Instagram live a bust because of technical difficulties, but you're a favorite amongst the people who watch this show. So thank you for taking time out of your day yet again to be on here.
Thanks for having me, Brandy. I mean, I know that we have a lot of crossover community members.
We do.
Who support our music, and they're all incredible people, listeners. And so I'm glad that there's our intersection that we have. And I was bummed that we got interrupted by Instagram last time.
Me too. Like, you know, it's forced me to do this a little differently, but I actually like having this on YouTube, and then people can go back and watch it whenever they want. And they're talking about bigger things happening with it, which is really, really amazing. And it's so much fun for me because I just get to sit down with people who inspire me and talk about inspirations in music. And speaking of that, I was thinking this morning, because the world is different than when we sat down before. Even though the world is crazy, it's gotten crazier. And I know that activism has been a huge part of your life and career. And I would love to hear why that is. Like what, I mean, other than it's the right thing to do, like why you chose that?
Well, I mean, it really started out simply. Both Amy and I were reared by parents who taught us that we're members of the community, that we just don't live in a bubble. We're not an isolated human being. And so we were taught that. And then we both grew up going to church, and there was a lot of, there's a lot of how we take care of our communities and other people and things like that. And then when we got to start being a little band, we just found it was so easy to do benefits and gather other musicians for things for needs in the community. And then, as time went on, we met these incredible mentors like Winona LaDuke, who we started Honor the Earth with. And so we've been working with indigenous communities now for like economic preservation, cultural sustainability, food growth, things like that for, I think it's over 2 decades now. Wow. And it is a very simple place from which it springs. And you mentioned the state of things right now. And Black Americans have been suffering for 400 years in this country, and some things have changed, but a lot of things have not, maybe most have not. And so right now, what I want to do is open my ears and my eyes to Black mentors who can teach me what to do, because there's suffering going on. But I don't want to come in and say, I can do this for you, or I know this or something. It's like, I don't know shit. I want to be taught. And that's where our activism comes from too. It's like wanting to be educated on issues and just caring about stuff that's around us. It's a really simple motivation.
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful one.
Thanks.
I've never been an activist, but I should be. I see that now, I've thought a lot about over the last 2 weeks, I've always just had the stance of, well, I'm not a racist. And so I've done my part. And the truth is I haven't. And I also need to be schooled. I mean, I've posted a few things that I've been schooled on because I didn't realize that it was the wrong thing to say or the wrong thing to post. And, it's easy from my vantage point to get it wrong because I haven't had to be judged by the color of my skin. And sometimes I can feel like, oh, I understand that being gay. I understand what it's like to be in the minority, but I really don't. And so I know me, I'm working hard to listen more, like you said, and just mostly listen.
Yeah, I mean, I started following some women that Glennon Doyle recommended. I'm a big Glennon fan. And then of course we have lots of Black friends and mentors in our community here in Georgia. So yeah, it feels bad to make mistakes and to say things that are racist or to take for granted your white privilege, which we all have. But it's okay to make mistakes at the beginning, as long as we are really open-minded and we don't mind going through the pain of realizing that there's a lot we haven't realized. And so I've made so many mistakes through my life, and publicly and in videos, and with regards to different cultures. And yeah, I look back and feel horrible about it, but the best thing to do is get educated and move on. So
Speaking, you mentioned Glennon Doyle, who I follow on all the socials, and we read a couple of her books on my book club, and she actually joined the feed on,
I noticed that.
which was amazing. I mean, our book club is anywhere from about 90 people to 125 people that tune in, which I think is great. And when Glennon hopped on there, it went right up like 700, 900. I mean, she's got a big platform, and you know, deservedly so with what she does. But I was going to say, I loved the video of her and Abby singing Closer to Fine. I'm assuming you saw that.
We freaked out because we're such big fans of both those women, you know, and then we got to talk with them. We did like a Zoom talk, and they're incredible women. And Glennon's doing the same thing that we want to do, which is to listen to the Black voices who are leading us. And then, of course, making connections to, I mean, seriously, the way this country was founded, coming on in, and what we did to Indians, and this sort of thing is not sustainable over a long period of time without something having to be reckoned with. And I feel like we're at a tipping point in this country, and you know, I want to be ready. I want to do what I'm asked to do. So that, yeah, there's going to be a lot to write songs about. Well, you just put out your album, and we just put out our album, but I'm sure you're thinking about a lot of stuff too.
Yeah, almost everything I've been writing has been about everything that's going on, you
Oh,
know.
is that right? Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
it's definitely, I find when I do a Zoom write, it's just, at first, you know, I thought, oh, maybe I shouldn't, I would just write down ideas when I'd be watching the news, and I thought, you know, people probably don't want to write about that. But then when I would get on these Zoom calls, it's all everybody would talk about. So
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, let's just write about it. You know, that's part of the way that I can process it. And I think, you know, a lot of creatives process that way. Um, so yeah,
definitely.
I think a lot will come out of this in the creative world. I was watching the other night, there was that Laurel Canyon documentary. Have you,
No, I want to see that. I
it,
haven't seen it.
it's definitely worth watching. I've only seen the first half, but um, you know, the song For What It's Worth, it came out of the same sort of situation, and boy, that thing, that song, it's never been more relevant than right now.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's interesting the way you can write a song, and we write songs from a long time ago, and then, I mean, human beings, we tend to repeat ourselves, don't we? So it comes back up in what's going on currently. Like I wrote a song like, it's called Let It Be Me, that Amy and I recorded a long time ago. And it's about peace and coming together. And I think maybe, who was the president then? I don't know, the older Bush, or maybe even, who knows? Anyway, so now we sing some of the lines of that song again, and it's perfectly fitting for the current administration. And it's just interesting how things come around again, and a song can live through a lot of change.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of that, you know, I was talking this morning because I was watching the video of Closer to Fine, and that that song is always relevant, I feel. And I was going to ask you, who produced that record?
Scott Litt.
Because there is nothing on that record that's dated. That was what I was really thinking, like, man, that record sounds so fresh decades later.
It's cool. You know, we were really careful about how much production we put on it, because we came out, we're a bar band. We played in bars for years.
Mm-hmm.
We're, you know, two women with acoustic guitars, and we really wanted to hold tight to that. So, but Scott, he's fresh anyway. And like, he produced REM's recent albums at that time. And
Mm-hmm.
so our first album, it's just a lot of people playing live. So there, and of course back then, you know, do you remember recording on tape?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so the 2-inch tapes, and if you wanted to make an edit, you had to cut the tape. And so
Yes.
a lot of that album was just like, let's record it live, and we're not going to do a lot of production. And I think it just represented exactly who we were at the time. So I'm glad to hear it's not dated. I hear my voice and I go, oh my God.
Oh, your voice sounds amazing. It's part of what's not dated about it. And it, I didn't, I mean, I've known that. I've been at so many parties where the party ends with that. It begins with that song and it ends with that song, you know? And so,
What kind of parties are those?
I mean, just some of the people tuning in here have invited me to parties at their house. And like I said, I have a friend that reached out to me, and Sarah Pearson, I don't know if she's watching or not, but she was like, when you came on the first time, are you kidding me? I mean, I got a large portion of my Indigo Girls education through Sarah.
Oh,
And
that's cool. Thank you, Sarah.
oh yeah, I remember being at a party at Sarah's house, and we were all in this bedroom, and people that I didn't know could sing and play started singing and playing Closer to Fine.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So, but while we're on that subject, what is your favorite Indigo Girls song? Could you pick one?
Well, it's not probably going to be a song that most people like, because the ones that I like the best or that I've written are the ones that are pretty introspective. So I mean, there's a song I wrote called She's Saving Me that's really important to me, and I feel like I wrote in that song what I wanted to write, sorry. And then like Amy's song Shame on You, I never get tired of that song. That song just uplifts me and makes me feel active. And so Shame on You is a great one, but that's a hard question to answer. What about you? What's your favorite song of yours?
Probably a song on my first record called Hold My Hand. And much like what you just said about Amy's song, I never get tired of it. It will
Mm-hmm.
always save me in any performance setting. It
Mm.
always feels like the first time I've ever, it's one of those songs for me. I have a couple like this. I don't know if you ever feel this way, that I feel like I'm a listener more than I'm performing it. Like I enjoy the song while I'm singing it as if I was sitting in the audience. Or in my mind, there's a specific video of the song that I play and I don't do it to get into the song. It just is where it takes me. And it's not
I know,
even anything.
I know exactly what you mean. There aren't really a lot of songs that I've written that I feel that way about. There are a couple of them. That,
Yeah, it's like you get lost in them every time.
yeah.
And, and
Do
I,
you find that sometimes singing cover songs is more fun than singing your own songs? Do you ever find that? Or that you can get into a cover song in a way, there's something about being in a song that you've written that is, you can't get out of the self part of it, but when you sing a cover song, you just can, inhabit it. And of course, like, we don't want to do a lot of cover songs because we like to do the songs that we wrote, but do you ever feel that way singing a cover song?
I do. And sometimes I've noticed this recently. It really is. I didn't really know this until the pandemic, but I have done every every couple of Fridays, I'll do what's called Cover Friday, and I'll just get on Facebook and do covers. And it's supposed to be for 20 minutes. It always ends up being at least 40 because of me. Like I get lost in doing these covers. And I find my most inspired writing time is after that session. And I
Oh,
think
wow.
it's because those covers, those are where we get our influences. And so
Definitely.
it pulls me into a place that gets really creative. And honestly, it also reminds me of why I ever picked up why I wanted to play guitar. Like, so I could play that song I loved, or why I ever wanted to sing. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, I agree with that.
yeah, it's a great thing.
I
I
could
mean,
do, I mean, I could do, I did a portion of my shows. Sorry if I just interrupted you.
no, no,
Um,
no, not at all.
it's called Songs That Made Me Want to Write Songs. And
Yeah.
I would just come out with a guitar and play 2 to 5 songs that were the reason I wanted to write songs. And somebody pointed out to me one time, you realize that a similar chord progression is the thread through those songs.
Oh,
And
that's interesting. Huh.
I never realized that. It blew my mind. Oh, wow. I never thought about that.
Yeah. It's really interesting what you learn about your own self when you've got other people pointing things out to you. It's like, it's cool.
It's
It's
very
cool.
cool. You know, another thing that has changed since we last spoke is Look Long is now out in the world.
It is.
And that's a great album. And my favorite song is Look Long. That
Oh,
is,
it is.
and I feel like that's really timely. Like I listened to that. I'm somebody that gets stuck on a song. And on that record, that's the song I'm stuck on, where I really should give all the songs more attention, and they're all great. But you get stuck on that one song that you just, it's like an earworm. That one's kind of a heartworm in that it's like, it gets in my heart and it really feels, it brings me a lot of calm in what we're in.
That song, it's interesting about this album for me because I was able to be like, these songs are so personal. Like, I'm really not making up stories in these songs. Like, sometimes in songs, you know, you've had the experience, but you also make up another story that goes in the song, or you tell someone else's story or whatever. But these are all songs about stuff that have really been going through. And that song, I actually was doing a writer's workshop in Nashville that I do once a year with Lydia Hutchinson. I love it. It's like one of the highlights of my year. And my sister-in-law, who lives in Washington State, she was part of that workshop, and we drove home and we talked about religion and the devil and what's happening societally. And so that song starts out all the way from Nashville, or all the way to Nashville. We talked about this stuff. And then all the discomfort that we're feeling in our country right now, all the divisions, and then all those memories. Like my grandma in Ohio, she did have those Apollo mission glasses. I could picture them. We drank out of them, but they stayed up on top of the fridge. They were kind of special. And everything in that story just came from my life. And then I asked John Reynolds, the producer, because I love a beat. You know, I grew up listening to Black American music and hip hop, and I love beats, you know, and he put an 808 on that song, which you might not know.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it gives that this sort of hypnotic sameness all the way through the song. I don't even know if it breaks at all. It may break in a part or two, but so he let me have this because it's an acoustic ballad straight up. But because he put an 808 in it, it's got that beat in it. It kind of gives it something that it wouldn't have had if it had just been played through.
Mm. Yeah, when you say hypnotic, it's definitely that. It's one, you know, I get it from my mom. Like, we love to just loop a song. Like,
Yeah.
you know, listen to it all day long. Is that something you feel comfortable playing, or is it
I wish I'd prepared for that, Brandy, because that song's in a different tuning and I actually haven't practiced it.
No worries, no worries.
I can
Completely understand.
I'm so sorry. I should have learned it if I'd known.
Well, and I didn't even think about it, or I would have, you know, given you the heads up before.
Do you ever not know a song that you've recorded and you practice
Yes.
again?
In fact, I got really put on the spot on one of these live streams, and I felt really embarrassed. And it's interesting. It'd be interesting to know if you feel this way. I I'm so bad about retaining, and I blame it on songwriting, because I think it behooves me to forget a song once I've written it and move on. And so every time I go in to make a record, a lot of those songs are several years old, and I have to relearn them.
Yeah.
And, you know, and arrangements change. But no, I mean, and like, then when I'm on the road and I'm doing songs every night, I remember that set. But if somebody said something that we maybe was in the last set that we haven't been playing, if somebody threw that at me, it would take me a minute. Like, I couldn't just pull it out and do it.
Yeah, I think Amy, people are surprised that Amy and I have to practice as much as we do to relearn stuff. And sometimes we'll get a request and we're like, we don't know that right now, really. We couldn't do a good job of it. But Look Long, I mean, these are all the freshest songs of the newest bunch, but every day we're going to go do a bunch of recording tomorrow, pre-taping or whatever, pre-zooming. And I've had to practice songs from the new album. So Anyway, I know a couple other songs from the new album, but not Live Long.
I'd love if you want to play whatever you want to play, or if you don't want to play. Some people on here are like, let's just talk. That's fine too. But if you want to play, more than
Yeah, I do. I want to play a song for the new album that's called Country Radio.
Oh, I love that.
So, and I wrote this song, God, everything's centered around Nashville this time around, sort of. I wrote this song because when I go to Nashville to like co-write or hang out with friends or record or just, I love Nashville, just be there. Every time I drive home, I listen to country music on the radio. I just pick up the stations along the way, and some of it's old timey and some of it's, you know, the top 20 country blah, blah, blahs, you know, and some of it's a mishmash. And I love country music. And so, but I started to get this feeling of how I couldn't fit my own life story as a gay person into a lot of these songs that I loved. And it gave me this feeling of not sadness, but kind of wistfulness or other thanness. And so I wrote a song about that feeling, and it's on the new album. It's called Country Radio. I work at the mall food court, and when I get home, I fix something to eat, settle into my seat, and turn on the country radio. I know every word to every song, and they make these lonely nights a little less long, 'cause then I'm under the stars, regular at the bar, got a perfect girl, I got a warning truck. We go down to the river, and the moonlight is silver, but most of all I get to be in love. I wanna be that boy, I wanna be that girl, I wanna know what it's like to fall in love like most of the rest of the world. But as far as these songs will take me is as far as I'll go. I'm just a gay kid in a small town who loves country radio. I feel it in old time, I feel it brand new. That lonesome refrain, the secrets and pain, like only a song can know you. Then I close my eyes, it's like I click my heels. That's me in the story, and the story is real. It works like a charm, I got him on my arm, taking a chance on a dance while the band plays our favorite song. We're singing along, and tonight is gonna ask my hand. I wanna be that boy, I wanna be that girl, I wanna know what it's like to fall in love like most of the rest of the world. But as far as these songs will take me is as far as I'll go. I'm just a gay kid in a small town who loves country radio. And as I'm driving from work, the sign at your church says repent now. You can't go back to the ways of your past, so I got twice as fast to turn you on, so I can live like that boy. I wanna be that girl, I wanna know what it's like to fall in love like most of the rest of the world. But as far as these songs will take me, as far as I'll go, just a gay kid in a small town who loves country radio.
That's another great one on Look Long. You know, that song makes such a difference to those kids. Really, you really hit on something there.
Well, I think that we need to hear our stories or see our stories, and we need to hear them in music or see them in film. And I mean, I remember when I didn't know I was gay, um, and the movie Personal Best came out. Now you're younger than I am, so I
I've
don't know if
seen that movie though.
you have seen that movie.
I mean, I was such a jock growing up. That was definitely a movie I saw more than once.
Yeah, yeah. So when that movie came out, I was, oh my God, I was nervous as hell to go to the theater. I went by myself. I didn't want anybody to see me. I didn't know what I was, but I felt embarrassed and weird. But then that was like one of the first films that sort of spoke to a gay experience. And I think that it's not that we need to hear gay, 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 queer, 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 and all the songs or movies or whatever, but we do need to hear our stories told. We need to be represented in art and culture and
Oh, yeah.
education.
You know, I'm really fortunate in that I have a very accepting family. I never thought when I told my mom I was gay that it would be an issue, and it wasn't. But one of the reasons why I knew it wouldn't be was my mom loved Katie Lang. Like, you know, huge Katie Lang fan. I remember Ingenue playing in our house. That was one of those records where my mom would get stuck on a song, and that would be all we would hear. So I think representation is really important.
I think it is. You don't get a lot of it in country music, in terms of the songs themselves. It was really interesting to me when Girl Crush, I love Little Big Town. They're one of my favorite bands.
Great.
Yeah, they're so great. And that song Girl Crush came out and it made such a splash, because there was innuendo or whatever. But there's everybody I know in country music is just a wonderful, beautiful person who's open and, embracing of their queer friends and stuff. But there is a culture behind country music that is not readily, apparently accepting. So it's interesting.
Well, and you're right about, because being in it, being in Nashville as long as I have, I've never felt anything but accepted. But that's also creative communities, like the creative
Yeah.
are usually the most forward thinking, accepting people. But you're right about the narrative because when you were singing that, I want to be that boy, I want to be that girl, I want to fall in love like most of the rest of the world, which is so beautiful. And
Thank you.
um, I I don't think country music's always been that way because I think of my favorite songs like Crazy. That wasn't, to me, that was never about a boy and a girl. I mean, that was just, I think somewhere it's shifted to that girl in a pickup truck, guy driving the pickup truck thing.
Yeah.
Um,
She's got a white t-shirt on and blue jeans and
yeah, and
well, yeah, and great. I'm glad for
right,
those gals in the white t-shirts and the blue jeans, but
I think the songs that are the bedrock of country music aren't that. And that's probably what drew me to it as a kid. Um, those songs like I Fall to Pieces. I mean, I'm thinking Patsy Cline a lot in all this.
yeah.
Great Willie Nelson songs, just and I always feel and I always my hope is always for country music that it always comes back to that. But I
Yeah.
do think it's important that we hear. I mean, Mickey Guyton has a song out called Black Like Me. It's beautiful. And she's an African American girl in country music, and it's her story. I think that's important. I think it's important that there are gay stories told in country music.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the Highwomen have a song. Um,
About if she leaves
she
you,
ever leaves you, like,
not because of me or oh shoot. I love that song.
yeah, and I was lucky enough to be a part of a song that Casey Musgraves wrote or recorded. We wrote it together, her and I and Shane McAnally, called Follow Your Arrow. And I never thought of that as a gay song. A lot of people did and do. And I always tell people that, like, when people find out I wrote that song, it's like I wrote Bridge Over Troubled Water, what that song means to a lot of people in the LGBTQ community. And I just feel lucky that I happen to be a part of it because we weren't even thinking that way when we wrote it. But I think one of the amazing things about the generation that's after me, Casey would be in that generation, is they don't think about gay and straight or even black and white. I
Yeah.
think they think more, they just, I don't know, that generation's, they're a very open-minded, loving um, generation. I hope that that prevails.
Yeah, the younger generations, they're giving me hope for sure.
Yeah.
There's so
Um,
much to learn from them. Casey Musgraves, oh my goodness, what a voice, what a presence, you know. And that's a very important song.
yeah, she's such an ally to a lot of communities. I mean, and she's just a fantastic artist and
Yeah.
is going to say what she thinks. And I've always really, she's not going to pander to anybody. I've always really admired that in Casey. From the first time I ever started, I was fortunate to write with a lot of songs with her, and a lot of songs with her early on when she was, finding her voice, and
Hmm.
she never backed away from saying anything, and I thought that was great. Didn't care if it was too far for country radio or not far enough for somebody else over here. I mean, she just was gonna tell a truth and tell a story, and that's a great artist.
Good for her. I mean, she might have had some people in her ear at record companies or something, you know, there always seems like they try to do that, but it's great that she's been able to speak freely and speak her true voice, and it's inspiring. It really is.
So another question, I wrote some questions down so
Yeah.
that I could be somewhat, you're so easy to talk to, so it'd be easy for me to just get off. So I was like, I'm gonna write a couple of questions.
Okay.
So you've done all this work with the Indigo Girls, and then 3 decades in, correct me if I'm wrong, you made a solo record.
Hmm.
Was the writing for that any different?
It was different. It was very different. It was different in that the songs were written sometimes in pieces. Like I'm used to sitting down and writing a song all the way through on guitar. So there's a song on that album called Train Inside that was written all the way through on guitar. And it's the most comfortable and easy song for me to sing. It's the least produced kind of.
Mhm.
Sierra Hull, by the way, do you know her, the mandolinist, Sierra Hull? Um,
I know who she is. I don't know her though.
she's brilliant. She played all over the album, and every once in a while you get a player who just becomes like a glue sonically and in terms of texture. And anyway, she was on that song. But the point being that I Lyris Hung produced that album, and she plays violin with me and Amy, but she does more than play violin.
She's so good.
I don't think there are too many accolades you could say without, and you wouldn't be exaggerating. She's really, anyway, so she produced the album. We would write bits and pieces of songs and put them together. She would send back a beat idea that she'd arranged the rhythmic structure of the song, the beats, and then I might add a part to it. And so a lot of the songs were constructed as the album went on. And in one song, she now I'm blanking on the name of it, which is dumb, but she wrote the music and I wrote the lyrics. And first I wrote about race riots in the 60s to this beautiful tune, and she's like, well, I'm not sure that's exactly what I had in mind for the content of this particular thing. So I went back and wrote something else. But so the pieces were written like that. So when we went to go play like gigs where it was just me and Lyris, I had a very, very, very hard time playing the songs live, because on the album, there are all these incredible players and it's very produced, and some of it really rocks, and there's lots of sonic layers and stuff. And I felt very insecure about playing a lot of them. She always said, you know, these songs live on their own. You just have to have faith that they're going to translate. And it was extremely challenging for me. So that album, I'm so proud of that album though. I mean, we worked really hard, and I have to thank people because we did a fundraising campaign for it. It was an expensive album to make, but I love the production on it. But it was very challenging because I couldn't really afford to take a band out for a long time. You know how that goes. It's
Oh, yeah.
expensive.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
So we did a baby tour, and that was it. So I didn't really get to flesh it out on the road for a long time. But absolutely completely different process, and I think next time I'd be more relaxed about it all. But it was like, oh, I've never done it like this before. I can't play this song on my guitar. That kind of
You know,
weird.
you said something like going out on the road and fleshing it out. That's something that all of us that have just released new music are not getting to do.
I know, including us.
Yeah, I mean, you guys put your album out, and that's hard. I mean, I know I could speak to my own feelings about it. Like, you know, you wanted, it's like this baby that you want to show the world. Are you feeling any of that?
I feel sad that we didn't get to, I mean, I think we will in time get to take it out with a band, but it was very disappointing. We had it all planned out. We were going to start rehearsals in late April, and I really wanted the album to be presented with a band, and so did Amy. And so now, little by little, we're just presenting it acoustically as we record this and that, you know. So like, we're going to be doing the Today Show, so we're going to record it acoustically. But I'm living in the moment, and the way things are is the way things are, and I'm fine with that. But I also feel sorry for our management, our agents who we have such a long relationships with, our tour manager, the band. Everybody worked so hard. Our management worked so hard to work those dates out, and our agent. And I feel bad for them, and I feel worried for small venues, and I feel worried for small agents. And so big disappointment, but you know, everybody's had to deal with disappointment. And that album got postponed 2 or 3 times just for practical reasons before the pandemic even hit.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time May 22nd was the date, it's like, let's just do it. We're ready.
I'm really happy that I mean, mine came out right before it happened, so there wasn't any,
Yeah.
you know, like, oh, should we or shouldn't we? I'm really happy that, you know, like you guys and several other friends of mine that have released music in this time. I'm glad that everybody, for the most part, has gone ahead and released their projects, because the world needs the music. It just does, and it's scary. I can't imagine. I mean, I know what it felt like to me to have a shutdown right after it came out, but for the world to be basically shut down and put a record out in there, that's a scary thing for an artist. And
Did
so,
you get to tour your new album before everything? No, you didn't.
no, but I did. You mentioned the Today Show. The last thing I did was I did the Artist Lounge on the Today Show, which was amazing. And I was getting ready to go to Nashville to start rehearsals for a tour that was starting for me March 28th.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You know, and this record for me is it's got we use the Memphis strings and horns, and so I chose
Yeah.
well, I have a cellist that plays with me, and then the guy who I hired to play piano, he plays trumpet, and so I was so excited to work all that out. And my band leader
Yeah.
was super excited about, we figured out how we can get so many of the sounds on that record. And so, yeah, so it was a disappointment to me and everybody else that was going to be playing. But you're right. And I don't think about it enough. You're right. Managers, agents, they're not making any money in all this and have worked so hard to route those tours.
So hard. So hard. We were like, because we don't get to tour with a band a lot either, you know. We would tour with the band a lot more if it were economically feasible. And most of our band, they're Brits. So now we have like the added issue of visas. It's terrible what's happened when you try to get British players to come over. It's really, really expensive and prohibitive, and it just doesn't make any sense. There shouldn't be any like borders between creatives from country to country and across oceans. But so yeah, it was disappointment, but I feel sure we'll get to do it again. And of course, Amy and I are in a lot better position than a lot of artists who just kind of live gig to gig, and we're worried about a big part of the music business. It's not, I guess you call it business, you know what I mean? People, music people.
People who don't necessarily play, but love this like we do and make it so we get to do it.
I miss playing live shows. I really do. And I miss getting on that bus at night, feeling the wheels roll underneath me. I mean, I'm a traveler. I really am.
Me too. This is the longest I've sat still since I started going out on the road. And yeah, there's something about that bus and getting on there with everybody that's played the gig. It's, you know what it feels like? It's like, I don't know if you ever played sports, but I did.
I didn't.
every night on a tour bus, I mean, unless something goes really wrong, feels like you've just won a big game. You know,
Yeah,
like you get
yeah.
off and everybody's high from the show, and there's like, just everybody is just loving what just happened and hanging out and watching TV, and some people are drinking a beer and some people are just drinking a soda, and there's usually bad food at that time of night.
Yeah, 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 right.
It's just really it's I don't think unless somebody's been on the road they can really understand it, but it really becomes your family and your world.
Yeah.
Your world is that bus.
And even before you get on the bus, it's such a healthy exchange of energy with people. As a fan, I mean, live music is the best thing in the world. It's like one of the best things in life.
I
And
agree.
I go to concerts as much as I possibly can. And first time I met you was at a Jennifer Nettles concert, and you played that night.
At one of the best, was it in Atlanta?
No, it was up in the Northeast somewhere.
Well, the best venue in the country in my opinion. Because yeah, you guys played that night too. I opened the show, and then you guys, and then Jennifer. I can't remember the name of it, but it's in New Hampshire, and the backstage, as great as as great of an experience as it is for a fan. There's never a better time to be a musician than that venue. Guilford,
Is
Guilford,
it Guilford?
yes. And I mean, talk about like they just make your whole day amazing. And usually a lot of times, the most amazing part of the day is being on stage, which even there it is, but the other 23 hours are pretty damn good there too.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. That memory is just seared in my brain. Just meeting you, and I was kind of nervous, I didn't want to bother you. You were I thought maybe you were kind of quiet, and I didn't want to get in your space, but then everybody was so friendly. I don't know, it was just great memories. And Jennifer had I think she had Mags out with her
She did.
on that tour. Yeah, it was just a great one. So have you gotten used to staying at home? Because I'm starting to feel like we sat outside on our porch the other night, just me and my wife and our daughter, and I got a sense of what it feels like to really be home for a long period of time. And I loved it because personally, up until then, I've been struggling with not touring because I miss it. How about you?
Well, there is something really nice about being at home, and I'll say this, and it's not my daughter, but it's the closest thing to it.
Your dogs.
Yeah, so I have Betty, and then I have Ava, and I got Ava last October, and I was always a little bit sad because I thought, because that first year is so important to bonding.
Yeah, 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 totally.
And having a dog on the bus can be really hard, and I worry about them darting out the door, honestly, more than anything. And so I thought, man, I'm going to miss so much of it this first year. And I haven't. So that part of it's been really nice because, I get to teach her things and she gets to teach me things. And I get to have this bond that won't ever be broken now. Like, it'll bond us together, forever. And so that
Yeah.
part's been pretty great. And then, it's made me have a different relationship with a lot of, like, with social media in particular. I
Mhm.
have been a hater of social media, and it's definitely made me see it differently. Like, I was seeing it wrong, and
Mhm.
now I see it as a connector. I used to really see it as a waste of time, a rabbit hole, which I love a rabbit hole, so I can go down one. Um,
Depends on what rabbit hole it is.
yeah, and then this thing where people compare themselves to each other and you feel bad, and I don't see it as any of those things. I mean, it's still a rabbit hole for me. About if I look up the wrong hashtag, not the or the right hashtag, I can be down a rabbit hole for 8 hours. But I see it differently, and so that's been a positive for me. And I also see where probably wouldn't hurt us to slow down a little bit, just as a people.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I'm really curious to see what happens after we get to move about more freely. What people are going to remember from this, what actually will have changed forever, and what will get back to the way it was, questions like that. And I used to have, yeah, I had the same sort of misunderstanding about social media until we realized how much it connects people. Like when we had to cancel our shows and we did a live stream on Facebook and people were connecting with each other. We didn't know what was going on until after. And I was like, this is so beautiful. Like this is a way, because a lot of people are lonely, isolated. We're all isolated. And to be connected, it was profound, and only through social media, you know. And then for me too, when I've been trying to, well, I follow Glennon and Abby, of course, and Glennon said, check out this woman, Rachel Cargill. I didn't know Rachel before then. And then I joined her Patreon page, and I have her Revolution playlist playing in my house. And I find so many great activists on Instagram and stuff like that. So now it's like, there's always going to be that part of social media that is bad for young girls who are taking their own pictures and trying to compete. And I can't stand the hatefulness of it. But I suppose it's like anything in this country, like the good and the bad of it.
Totally. You know, you said something, and then I have one more question for you. And if you don't mind taking us out on music, that I'll let you
Sure.
get through today. But there is a group of people that watch this show, and out of it, they have a Zoom cocktail party.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I've been invited to it a couple times. I've never been able to join it, but I'm going to. And I just think, man, that's so great. I don't think they met on this, but they're people that come to shows, and you know, people I would call, you know, friends, but in this time they're all separated, and so that's their way to connect, is to have that Zoom cocktail hour.
So do then they get together with their cocktails and they listen to your Zoom show?
Well, I think what they do is they watch this, and then as soon as this ends, they get onto their Zoom.
Ah, I see. That's cool.
Yeah, or maybe they. I'm not very technologically savvy. They might have figured out a way to do it while watching this. I don't know, but
I was going to say, back in the day when I had cocktails, I wouldn't be listening to nobody talking. Yeah. So it's cool that they would do it afterwards.
totally. So my last question, you mentioned your daughter. How has being a mother changed you, your outlook on life and on music and songs, and what you want to say?
Well, the first thing it has done for me is just opened me even further than I thought I could be. I've always been very sensitive, but it's made me more sensitive to suffering in the world, and particularly suffering of children, now that I'm around this innocence. And I could almost cry talking about it. I mean, to love a kid, I always heard that. I never wanted to have a kid. I mean, my wife, she really wanted to have kids, um, and we had to go to therapy and just work it out. And finally, it was just like a major leap of faith for me. And now it's like, oh my God, I never knew that I could be as unselfish as I have to be a parent. And so it has changed me, because it has taught me that I can get something out of focusing on something beside myself that is more important than focusing on myself and getting something. And that's a big lesson of growth for me. And then Cleo is just, she's so funny. She makes me laugh. I really like hanging out with her. I mean, this morning we played 3 hours of games, which was a little long. But
That's unselfishness. You would put 3 hours.
girl, I know. I said, she woke me up this morning and early, and she's like, can you read to me? And I'm not going to say no to reading, you know. And so we read really, really early. I was like nodding off. And I said to my wife, like, hon, can I just go back to bed for 30 minutes? She's like, I'm sorry. I got an appointment at 9 a.m. I got to go. And I was like, okay, I can make it. But to answer your question, it has affected everything in my life. And I feel like I'm going to grow as a writer. And I know I've grown as a person through motherhood. And it just is like a big old mirror. And I see all the things I need to work on. And it's really great. It's full of a lot of worry, and you just want to protect them and all those things that you always hear. But it has changed me profoundly in a really good way.
I have 2 nephews and a godson, and I'm very active in my godson's life. He lives in Nashville, my nephews live in Alaska, so I'm not as active in their life as I wish I could be. But I think of the worry I have over those three boys.
Yeah.
I can't imagine if one of them were mine. You know, it's
Yeah. You just, children, they just need love and boundaries. You know, they need to be free and they need to be who they are. And I think of what a beautiful world it would be if we started out by just taking care of children and they didn't have to suffer, be wounded, and then grow up to be adults who have to be protective and however else it works out. So, yeah, I mean, any child.
boy, you know, you just said something that was so simple but so true. If we just took care of children, you you think about that, like everything goes back to childhood. Any of us that have had any therapy know that. And boy, if you had a world that wasn't a bunch of wounded adults, a generation of that, you know, from their childhood, I can't even imagine
Yeah,
the
yeah,
things
it
the whole
would
way.
be a beautiful thing. But unfortunately, the cycles keep it, make it hard. We all know about that, um, but it's awesome. I'm old. I'm an old parent. I'm like, I gotta take a nap. But I'm so glad I got the opportunity. I'm sorry I probably won't be able to live deep, deep, deep into her life in terms of years, but this experience for me has just been, about the most that I can feel as a human being. So that's pretty good.
Well, she's lucky she's got you. And I think she's lucky she's got you deeper into your life. I worked at it. One of my part-time jobs was at a school. And when I was, you know, trying to get a publishing deal in Nashville, and I grew up, you know, my mom was 23 when she had me. And at that
Uh-huh.
time, I was old. Like when
Yeah.
she was old, people were worried she wasn't going to get married and have kids. And I had great parents and they were
Me
young. Like
too.
my dad was 26, 27 when I was born. My mom was 23. And I always say they were 300% parents. Like they made their lives about us. And um, when I went to work at that school in Nashville, I worked in the pre-K and the kindergarten, and I only had one set of parents that were under 30. And it was really interesting to me. And not, I mean, look, there are a lot of great young parents. Like I said, I had great young parents, but there are some things about a parent being older that I think I saw as huge advantage for kids. Patience is huge. Um, Means, you know, there was, you know, you get a little bit older, you're a little further into your life and know how to
Hmm.
budget money. And, you know, I think the biggest is none of those kids, all those kids were wanted. Like
Yeah.
most people aren't having accidents in their 30s and 40s. Like it's, you know, they really wanted a child and you could feel that. And those kids,
Yeah.
so I think being a little older, like deeper into your life is better for Cleo.
That's an excellent point. I agree with you, and thanks for saying that. I was also going to say, like, no gay parents have accidents and have kids. They're just like,
That's true. I mean, I always say if I wasn't gay, I'd probably have 3 kids by now. I mean, you know,
yeah, 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 exactly, exactly.
just kind of happens while you're making other plans. Yeah, if you're same sex, you have to decide it, and you know,
Yeah.
um, but no, that is, and also, you know, I really do feel like, I mean, my mom always says, once you have a child, your life's no longer your own.
Well, that's the truth.
Some people would disagree with her. I believe that's right. I mean, my dad would say kids don't ask to be born. Now, I was lucky I grew up between those two schools of thought. But I think, you know, you had an opportunity to live out your dreams before you had her.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's
And
exactly right. And I tell you, Brandy, it has been a life of dreams. I mean, just getting to do this long road with Amy and continuing to be able to do it is just miraculous. And now I got this great kid and a really good marriage. And I just am so fortunate. I don't know how I got this life. I don't, but I'd like to share some of that fortune and keep on learning. But I'm a lucky gal.
oh, well, we're all lucky for you and Amy, and you
Yeah.
know, made music that makes me want to make better music, and you know, is the the soundtrack of a lot of people's lives. So thank you. And
Oh, thanks.
anybody listening that hasn't gotten Look Long, go get it. You won't be disappointed. Every time I get an album of y'all's, the writing is always so good. It's like, oh my God, it's just so great, and makes me want to be better. So thank you. And
Coming from you, that's quite a high compliment, because
thanks.
you know, you probably don't have the liberty of using a word like complicated in your song or something. Like, I'm always sticking these weirdo words in my songs, and you've got that great, what's it called, economy of words that tells a story that I have such admiration for. So I guess we all bring what we bring to the table, and thank God for that.
Well, your stuff, thank you for saying that. It means a lot. But your stuff, I was listening to that song Leaving the other day, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a line about a traveling heart. And I was like, that right there could be a whole song. I mean, I feel like every line of your songs could be another song, which, like, and I love that because to me, it's like they are writing songs to the wall. You're not saving anything. Like you are.
No, it's a bit of a purging, isn't it?
I love it.
I thought I turned my notifications off. Sorry about all the ding dings if you're getting them, but
Okay, I mean, I feel lucky we've made it this far without a major meltdown from a dog on this end. Thank God there's been any birds taunting them outside. I'm like, girls, be good. Get you a treat after this. But anyways, thank you again. I'd love it if you took us out, even on a piece of a song, whatever you're feeling.
well, we were talking about Closer to Fine, so I might as well go back to
Yes,
the bones, as Maren Morris says, right?
yes, that's another great song.
Oh, she's so good. Brandy, I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you for having me. It's
Thank you.
just good to know you're out there in the world making music and being the person you are. So thanks a lot for inviting me.
Thanks.
All right, y'all cocktail people, go have a party. Can I just do part of the song? Would that be better?
Yeah, just take us
All
out.
right, we'll do it. We'll do it like it's a radio show or something.
Okay.
We're going out. Thanks again. I went to the doctor, I went to the mountains, I looked to the children, I drank from the fountains. There's more than one answer to these questions, pointing me in a crooked light. The less I seek my source for some definitive, closer I am to mine, yeah. Closer I am to mine, yeah.
Woohoo! Go drink those cocktails.
All right, let's go out there and be good to each other, huh?